butcher anybody's name.
Okay. We're running?
Are you streaming, sir?
Are you swearing?
I am not swearing. I do not swear.
You, Rob, cut it.
No swearing.
So I can monitor the sound, tone?
Correct.
Will they
that's
be able to hear us while you're playing the video? Audio.
okay.
I'm just asking.
Okay,
Mhm.
fair enough. Thank you. Can you put that in the booth for me? Thanks, Sarah.
You put the video in the.
Name that tune.
This is Muzak, isn't it? Elevator music?
Diets or whatever you wanna call it.
Kiko. No, that's not Kiko. I don't know who that is. Spiral Gyro.
Are you serious?
Don't call me serious. Call me Tony.
No worries.
Mhm.
So it provide a local. You're gonna have to elaborate on the local content fee.
Yeah, it's basically the same thing as what they're doing now.
Mm-hmm.
It's just as
Making sure that
television-
you get it.
making sure that there is a fund, whether we get it or whoever, someone. There should be a fund for local content,
Yeah.
and eventually the television, as it exists, maybe not through IPTV, but
So
it's got to come from somewhere.
Do you get any funding right now,
No,
aside from grants or anything like that?
nothing.
So the community, the 5% or whatever that DDUs pay doesn't go to you at all. It goes to their own
Zero.
stations.
You got it.
I gotcha.
And,
Okay.
and basically, to be honest, it makes to us it doesn't make sense. It's their money.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be a stupid way to look at it, but in reality, it is. So we need to create our own,
Mm-hmm.
or at least the commission needs to allocate that, define it,
Yeah.
clearly define it, so there is no restrictions or conclusions of how it should be done. And then we're not second guessing. I even applied for the LPIF, which I thought we should have got it, and they said no, you don't qualify.
Mm-hmm.
So we start, we actually have a small video, and I think if we can play that right now, that would be the first thing we'd like to show you. CFTV is better known as South Shore Broadcasting, is a low-power community television station based out of Leamington, Ontario. Although we have experienced our fair of obstacles, we are very proud to persevere for the last 10 years to provide a constant voice to our area. Through an arrangement with local telco, Gosfield North Telecommunications Cooperative, as well as a strong relationship with the municipality of Leamington, we have been able to evolve and adapt to the needs of our community. We believe local television should be provided a service for the people. It should be encompassing, relevant, and transparent in news and entertainment as well as information. That is why we're here today. We would like to propose a solution that is practical issues surrounding community television, accessing to local media, and refine the funding allocation model. What we are proposing is a local community broadcasters work in tandem with the service providers and the municipalities to find a way that makes sense for local community coverage. The broadcast fund, as it currently stands, does not benefit the low-power stations like ourselves. We do not, to this date, have received any money from this fund. We relied heavily on the working relationships to maintain our station. The following is our proposal model, and it's based on 7 simple points. The community channel needs to be a nonprofit to truly meet the needs of community. Number 2, community support is paramount. A community and its residents need to put forth the effort and interest to assist in establishing the broadcast station that services the local needs, as well as they should have access to the station's resources. If there's a new funding model for the community nonprofit stations, we propose that the municipalities apply for the funding. Municipalities have the mechanism to administer, report, and track the performance of the broadcasters in the community. Number 4, Program Advisory Committee, or PAC, made up of members of the community, should be established to work in tandem with the community station to assist in determining the needs for local programming. A business relationship with the local television with service providers as well in the license area should be established to provide content for their community channel. Number 6, develop a working relationship with for-profit local independent production companies for co-productions that provide the opportunity to seek sponsorship, add revenue, and grant funding. Maximizing availability should be the broadcaster's #1 priority. Therefore, the station should provide multiple ways of distribution. This can include over-the-air, BDU distribution, satellite, IPTV, and online. In conclusion, a revision needs to be made to the current system. It does not function in a way that benefits any small community or rural area across Canada. South Shore is proposing a modification that requires telcos and providers of services to pay a local content fee, the production of news, events, and local content. This local content should be distributed in a multitude of media vehicles, including online. The municipal governments should apply for the funding that meets the community needs. We should listen to the needs of our community, and with guidance from the Commission, allow them to truly participate in the process that allows communities to be unique and united as Canadians. That's pretty much our presentation. It's more of an idea that we had. It's more of a working relationship that we developed with Rob for the past 3 years. And it seems to be working for us. So we're open for questions. Good afternoon. Let me backtrack a little bit. We managed to stay on the air with a lot of debt, but a lot of good debt. There's the opportunity for growth, And to answer your question on why it was decided to start the station, it was a very simple. Maybe it was self-serving at first. Uh, there was some. There was an announcement on our municipal not the website, but in the newspaper, that there was some changing in zoning, and the only provider of the broadcast for town council at that time was the local cable provider. Unfortunately, in our area, it is extensively and very heavily saturated with over-the-air signals from the U.S., both Michigan and Ohio. And we failed as residents to have that opportunity, so there was no choice. There was no other solution except cable at that time. So that's how CFTV kind of got started, and there was many of us that felt the same way. To enhance that, once the ball got rolling, there was more and more chance of production. The problem has been the funding. It has been. That's correct. Yes. It was basically friends, goodwill and friends. This area, even though it's agriculture, there's quite a bit of money, and close friends came to the help with the idea that it didn't take much. And one of the things that was beneficial for myself was my technical background. We managed to do a lot with nothing, and now working in relationship with Gosfield North, we have taken that additional step, and it's been great. Yes, they still are. Correct. working, personally working 3 jobs, and a lot of volunteers. The unfortunate part is that the volunteers come and go, and one of the things about the industry, and I'm sure this experienced by other people, is you do need a core of professionals, and you rely extensively on a certain amount of volunteers, but you can't depend on it. I think it's forced hope to say that volunteers will run the service. It's not. You mean access to the general public? Obviously, it was very limited. To this point, it's my understanding that people call us wondering why there isn't more advertising on the local BDU of CFTV, and the times of programming, what's coming up next. That has never been, and we provide those services to Bell and to the IPTV provider, Gosfield North. Um, the big push for us, to answer your question, was Bell. Bell was huge for us. And when Gosfield North came to us, and maybe I'll get Rob to kind of talk a little bit about that, was the connection of the fiber optic. Having that, I'm sorry, go ahead, you were going to ask. We, people come. I mean, people. There is no shortage of ideas. The problem with that is that people have this false idea of what we are, who we are. We get absolutely zero funding from the television fund. So therefore, they feel that they can come to us and say, here, you must broadcast this. We can't, especially with for-profit producers. We do have policy of how to address that. Nonprofits, we don't charge anything, but for-profits, we do, if that kind of answers your question. Okay. Mhm. That's right. Yes. Well, there again, it was, we can do a lot with nothing. Having a technical background makes it easier for us. We're very unique. We did a bit of our homework the second time around when we decided to go digital. We had to. As I indicated, we're saturated with approximately 40 plus channels from the US, and we would have been the only one on analog. It would have been harder for people to find us. Majority of people, anyways, in the rural area used antennas to get their information of news. Having said that, we also saw the opportunity for specialty channels. We felt that that might be an avenue for other groups to utilize that without really affecting our broadcast outplaying to Rob's BDU and Bell, and yet provide a presence for specialty, for the Hispanic community, for the Francophone community, and so forth. Mhm. That's correct. The French is kind of lack because there again, there's no funding from them. There's no funding at all to allow them to. I mean, it's there. The time's there. It's just having money for them to produce anything to air on the station itself. Yes, yes. And it's a lot of replays. It's a lot of replays, and it's mostly a testing. Hmm. Hmm. That's right. You know what? It wasn't even to make a point of trying to access the funds, is that community channels like us, and I do believe there's 7 across Canada, I don't believe the other ones are getting any funding whatsoever. There is a mechanism, and we are developing a mechanism that works for us, and we basically like to share that information. Mhm. That's right. Mhm. To be quite honest, we have been. As a matter of fact, it was just in the last 2 years when we moved to a different location that we cut back on the production of news. We've been doing since 2005 a news break. Volunteer would come in and do a local news break. That was on the hour. I mean, it got kind of redundant, but it was information relevant, and we took those news breaks at the end of the week and formulated a half-hour newscast. We have managed to, through Rob's contacts, affiliated ourselves with another source for news, international news out of the U.S., unfortunately, and we're utilizing their service to augmentate our local news. So yes, it is possible. With Rob's growth comes potential of establishing points of, if you want to call them bureaus. It wouldn't take much to get a PTZ control device and allow the local town crier to send information back to CFTV to be uplinked and produced into a newscast. It's not impossible. We're linear. Rob might be able to, if you want to touch base to your services. Do you provide video on demand?
We do as a BDU, absolutely. So it's just, yes. Yep, it's just a matter of time. It's a little bit of an interesting story. One of my directors on our, I'll be quick. One of my directors came into my office one day and said, Rob, do you know that there's a TV station in Leamington? I heard we need a community station back when we were still in class 1, class 2 designations for BDUs. So to make sure that we had all of our ducks in a row to become a class 1, we hooked up with CFTV to be our community station, because as a telco, I have no idea how to do programming or production of TV. I'm sure I could make something on a computer, but I don't think it would be very fun for anyone or interesting. So it just seemed like a natural fit at the time. And one of the ways that we offered to work with CFTV as we built our distribution service was to increase the equipment that they had from standard def to HD, as well as provide them with a fiber-based internet link to the rest of the world. So we wanted to create a vehicle to be able to put out our community station wherever, however, whenever, I guess for lack of a better way to put it. And that's how our relationship was kind of built. Like various projects, like you heard Chief Louise mention, Tony needed someone to help build a wireless hi-fi or a wireless Wi-Fi hotspot. That's something that I know how to do. It just made sense. He said, Rob, can you help me? And our relationship has grown since then.
I don't think I'm special. I think what we're doing in the community is special. I think doing the job that needed to be done in the Leamington area is what really brought the interest of these people. And that's what's keeping the ball rolling, and it's just getting bigger. So can you imagine if we had more funding, which allow more people from the nonprofit sector and the for-profit sector? That's the key. It's growing. It's getting a little more stable. 5 years ago, I mean, like I said, it was 3 jobs, maybe even 4. Now it's becoming a little more consistent, if you want to say that. Yes. Absolutely. Separation. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, sir. it's like the old saying, not seeing the forest for the trees, right? There's so much. There's internet. There's as I indicated, 40-some channels from the U.S., but none of them really touch base into the county, which it's my understanding is over 300,000 people collectively. There's city of Windsor being represented, absolutely. And if there's something happening newsworthy in the county, they'll come out. And you know what? That's just the nature of the beast. They don't have resources as well. But here we are. So maybe one of the things you just brought up a very good point. We might become a source of information for maybe the bigger players. To answer your question, we're filling a need. We're filling a need. Right. You mean when the municipalities kind of have such an input? Um, well, I think, let me clarify something. Maybe I didn't articulate it well initially. The point of having the municipalities on board is twofold. One of them is they do have the mechanism to track funding and report it back in a way that we couldn't, and in a way that most nonprofits probably have a hard time. So they would be probably at least Leamington is be willing to do that. Second is bringing a hub of interest. As you indicated, how much percentage do we get of people coming in, they want to produce? The PAC committee, the Program Advice Committee, could be encompassing from the municipality. They're telling us what needs to be done. We report with regulatory issues back to the commission. We don't expect them to do that. We would be totally separate from that, if that kind of makes sense where we're going. They'd be more of the overseeing of the funds. Yeah. Mhm. At this point, like I indicated, if there is a new local community funding, whatever that might be, if there is, they should be the ones, because they have the best interest of what they need to have within the community for production. We can totally sit around a table and say, this is what you need, well, this is what's going to cost, and then they can apply for that funding with your direction, with the commission's direction. Exactly. Or, correct. And that's what they should be. And just to add to you before we shift, First Nations is the same situation. It's a nation within a nation. And they're in this potential growth of having that as well, so we would replicate the same thing internally without inventing the wheel. It would be just part of what we are. Services, with Rob, for the size that they are, they've been very gracious. I mean, if we were to pay for the bandwidth, it'd be hard pressed. So that is great. But as he grows outside, and there is funding for television, some kind of a television, I'm sure that we can come to an agreement to allocate some of those funds for local content production. We, in a sense, have become his community channel, if that kind of answers the question. Mhm. Mhm. You're talking about other OTA broadcasters? Well, we're very unique. For one thing, we are not producing millions of dollars productions. We're basically grassroots to what's relevant to what the municipality, going back to what their needs are, staying truly focused on what Leamington's needs are. The thing is, we are growing, and there is demand now. For example, we're doing the town of Essex, which is approximately 24 kilometers away. We're starting to broadcast their town councils. So we're looking at now at doing everything connected via fiber and maybe using PTC control, which cuts back on the camera personnel, but now puts a different spin on the level of technical people that we'll need. So from an economic point of development, it's there, a more robust and technically inclined development for employment, if you want to call it. Mhm. There again, I'm going to articulate a little bit better. We have some local production companies, let's say. We don't do sports, but we love to see more sports. There again, that takes a lot of resources, and if there's individual companies out there that would do that, then that would be a venue to exactly, exactly. And they're looking for a studio location or equipment, so it would work out well for both of us. Well, from a technical perspective, it's probably the aesthetics of it. We are SD, standard definition. We can now, if I had the money, go to one high def channel and the rest can be SD. That's probably one of the biggest things. The second is how to feed that monster. In a way, it makes sense. Theoretically, we had a crazy idea, and it's not so crazy, but our area doesn't have a francophone penetration from one of the major broadcasters in the area. It would be beneficial to maybe even barter or provide access for the francophone OTA to have a presence now in Leamington. Those are the things that we saw. Those were the opportunities, and that could be replicated anywhere else without disruption to conventional other OTAs who are not doing that. Is that kind of